I'm really glad that I wrote it down at the time too, because I think I've changed as a person a lot since then as well. But being such a young mum, scared, never having done it before, it's a lot about just new parenting and being thrown in the deep end as much as it is being widowed and trying to do it on your own. So I've put it all in there, raw and honest, even the times that he drove me nuts and I felt like I couldn't cope and I wanted to give up, and it's all in there. But then it's all so honest and true, and about how he also got me through. So I really think that he will be proud of me, I hope, and I really think that it will really strongly increase our bond into Billy's adulthood as well. Right now, he understands he doesn't have a daddy, or he does, but he's just up in heaven, but he doesn't fully grasp it. He's very young. So yeah, I probably wouldn't have remembered all those little things had I not journaled and wrote them down. So I'm so glad that I've got a raw rendition of how it was going through it so he can really understand.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. I get to talk to amazing people from around the world with great stories that will inspire you and encourage you and comfort you as well. And Leah's with me today. She's joining me from she's not in Canada where I am. I can tell you that. She's somewhere far, far from where I am, and you'll love her story. She wrote her book basically to her son, Letters to Billy, and thrilled to have time with her and watch her journey and watch her son grow. And I'm excited to have her on the podcast. Leah, welcome to the show. Welcome to Living the Next Chapter.
Thank you very much for having me, Dave.
It's exciting to have you here. Can you tell everybody, where are you joining us today, Leah?
I'm from the beautiful Sunshine Coast in Australia. So we're on the east coast over here. Beautiful weather. It's spring, nice and warm. I'll be going whale watching later today. Hopefully see some.
Wow. There you go. Excellent. Well, we're going into fall in Canada, and you're going into spring, so I'm a little jealous. I would like to go see a whale. I would really like to join you guys and go whale watching. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's school holidays, so I'll be taking my son Billy with me, and it'll be a nice little mother-son trip for us to end the school holidays.
Has Billy ever seen a whale in person before?
No, we did go when he was much younger, but the whales were far out, not very close to the boat. The weather was a bit dull that day, so I'm hoping I've heard there's been quite a few spottings around lately, so they're out there.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to be a great memory for the two of you as well, to go out there and do that together. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, that's great. So before you go looking at whales, let's talk about you, your journey, your book. There's a lot to talk about. When somebody writes a story like yours, it's very personal. It's something that you're showing a side of you and your family in this book, Letters to Billy, that it's hard to write stories like this, I would think, because some of this is you're living it in front of other people and sharing a story in front of other people. So can you tell us a little bit about the idea behind Letters to Billy, and kind of the concept of how you made this book come alive for us as readers and for Billy? Were they actually letters that were written over a period of time to Billy? Is that the idea for the book?
I think what I had to begin with was a lot of journal entries, and when I decided to write the book, I just wanted Billy to remember as much about his dad as I could put down on paper. So then the idea of writing the book for Billy morphed into creating a letter for the beginning of each chapter. So then figuring out what those chapters were and sort of condensing it all down, and then starting with a letter related to that sort of specific time of the journey and what lessons I learnt throughout those parts. Both what was going on at the time, and in hindsight, what I learned and would like to pass on to him.
Had you ever written anything previous to this? Like, were you a published author before writing Letters to
No,
Billy?
this is my first experience.
Wow, that's a big undertaking right there, just to write a book on its own. So, what kind of? I know we've mentioned together, you and I, that you've had some great help in the past, some good support. But who was there with you in the process of writing the book to encourage you and support you as you pulled all this together?
Yes, so I'm very lucky to have a connection through a lady I went to high school with called Roxanne McCarty O'Kane. She went through high school, then ended up working for newspapers as a journalist, and she really focused on the more warm and fuzzy stories and interviews. And I reached out to her through her website, actually. Knew she was really good at writing, and I just wanted some hints and tips, really, because I had so many different piles of journals and things I'd written, and I hadn't really thought about writing a book. I just wanted to compile something neat and tidy for Billy. But then on her website, I saw she did mentorship programs for up and coming authors. And when I saw the date for her first 1 day workshop, it was the same day as my late husband's birthday, which was the 23rd of November. And I thought that was a sign. And I thought, I'm going to book in and go along to this 1 day workshop and just see, what advice I can get to just get started. And instead of everything just being in disarray, sort of more structure and make things a little bit more easier to read, and where do I start kind of thing. And I booked that in February that year. So I was really eager. And that was only the month after Steve passed away. I was just adamant that I didn't want to forget anything really important, and I wanted to start writing it all down. But I thought that gives me good incentive to have something ready by the time I get there. So when I got to the workshop in November, I had a whole bunch of journal entries that I just tried to put all together that I'd written during my husband's cancer battle. And yeah, I didn't really know what to expect, but Roxanne was so inspirational and really great at guiding my thoughts. And it was in that workshop that day that I came up with the title, Letters to Billy, and it really became more of a project to look forward to then, instead of just a bunch of papers to hand down to my son.
There's people listening, Leah, that are thinking about writing a book, a personal book like this, and they're kind of overwhelmed with the idea of writing. You've had some great support and great help through your friends and family to do this. But if you could help that author that's listening, who is saying, "I would love to do this," I don't know. I don't know if anybody would be interested in this book idea that I have, but you've done it, and there's somebody that I want to honor with telling their stories and keeping their memory alive. But where do I start? Like, is there any tips you have beyond what we've already talked about that could help an author that's maybe wanting to write something similar to what you've done?
Yeah, look, those thoughts that we all have holding us back are very, very common for everyone. And I've been lucky enough to be a guest since then in some of Roxanne's more extensive 12-week authorship programs, in which I participated as well. After the 1 day workshop, I jumped onto the 12-week mentorship program. That really, really helped me in the sense of just keeping me accountable, because there was other people wanting to write as well. And just jumping onto those weekly Zoom meetings and connecting with those other potential authors was really, really great at accountability and keeping you motivated. But aside from that, the thoughts that we all have, oh, who's going to want to listen to my story? It's probably the same as someone else's, or, what makes mine unique? I was thinking, I just want to keep it private for Billy and myself. I don't really need the world to know. But as I was going on and I was getting the feedback and the interest from everyone in the group, there was lots of different elements of my story that people can relate to, and it became more. Roxanne used to always ask us, "What is your why? Why do you want to write this?" At first, I thought it was just for Billy and me to to preserve those memories. But later it became much more because people were starting to say, oh, my friend could really use that story. She's going through this. Or, oh, that is so similar to what happened to me. And I love the way that you've said that because I was never able to articulate my feelings. Or, so just little things like that, you realize, wow, that really can have an impact and help other people who are really unsure. So that changed my whole reasoning, and I was encouraged to do so, and I'm very glad I did because of the feedback I got afterwards. I thought, oh, it's just my story about my husband, but it's so much more because a lot of other people are going through that journey, and cancer has touched so many families and people, and it doesn't matter whether
Yeah.
you're a single parent or a widowed lady or a man. Yeah, a lot of people can resonate.
What changed for you? How did writing this book have an impact on you as the author as you went through the process of, working through this, creating the book, working with Roxanne? But what changed for you in the process? How did it help?
Yeah, I have always thought journaling really helps me to just get my feelings out on paper and process. So when I started writing this book very soon after I lost my husband, I think I really used it as a cathartic project to get those emotions out. And when you are writing a book, everybody thinks, oh my God, I'm rambling, everything's all over the place. And it was quite a process. There's a lot of it that gets culled, but that was all very relevant for me. All the stuff that didn't make the chapters of the book after publishing it to the final project was really great to get everything out and then to draw back on what's really important to leave in there and what's going to be important for Billy to read and what's going to be important for lessons I want outsiders to take from the book as well. So it was really, really interesting going from a real personal project to something much bigger, which I never expected, which was a really beautiful thing. Yeah.
Let's talk about your husband. Let's talk about how the two of you met. How did you meet each other? And let's start with that. I'd like to hear that part of the story as well.
Yeah, it's a little bit of serendipity, and that's one of the chapters in the book because we were always very nearby each other. We went to the same primary school here in Australia on the Sunshine Coast. We lived a couple of streets
Really?
away from each other and used to ride our bikes around the same beach areas, go to the same fish and chip shops to get $2 worth of chips back then, and have some of the same friends at school. But we didn't really officially meet until we were 30 years old, maybe a little bit young, maybe 20, 27, just bumping into each other at parties and things like that. We really came together because of music, I would say, because my brother, my whole family is very musical. I was a singer and I performed in covers bands here. And Steve was into his heavy metal and he was a heavy metal vocalist. And my brother was into his punk rock and heavy metal. So he had a lot of mutual friends with Steve's mates. And yeah, I think I probably met him a little bit through my brother and his acquaintances, but then different, parties and shindigs we used to hang out with in our early 20s. And then we
Nice.
blossomed a real cool relationship. He had a girlfriend and I had a partner when we first met, but we really hit it off. I thought he had an amazing personality. He was very kind, he was very vibrant and, just the life of a party and funny. And yeah, later when we both found ourselves single, we started hanging out and going for walks on the beach and chatting about life as really good friends first. And I love that we were real best friends before it blossomed into romance. So yeah, he used to come and watch me
Nice.
sing, and I used to go and watch his band and went from there.
There you go. You have music in common. I love that. That's amazing. I'm a musician too, so music's a powerful thing. It does bring people together. It does.
It is, yeah. Our wedding video, it's such a cherished thing that I've have. He said that he was drawn to me by my voice. And he said I was just
Oh,
mesmerized. And I love that he said that because, you know, singing is one of my greatest passions. So for someone to recognize something that you hold so dear in your heart and be
right.
really attracted to that was very nice.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So you get married together, you start a life together. Everything is great. Everything's fun and exciting and new, and then along comes Billy, which is like, wow, this is like your life is just beginning, right? And then something happens, and that's kind of what leads us to the book and your story. But what's it like to go from building a life where there's really no end in sight? You don't even think about that. That's not even the plan. You're just starting out, right? And then things take a drastic turn for the two of you. In those moments with you and Stephen, how did the two of you cope in those early days together as something was looming over the top of the two of you and your relationship and your family that was really, really tough to process? How did the two of you deal with that at the beginning? Like, what were some of the conversations?
Yeah, those conversations are really hard because, as you said, they just come out of nowhere. And the book does have that timeline. I say how we met. It's all the fluffy stuff's in there. You know, we traveled Europe together, like you said, got engaged, married the baby, and Billy was only 7 months old when the news came, and it was quite sudden. There wasn't a lot of warning. He was very fit and healthy and active, and these things creep up on you. You know, before we saw the real evident signs, it was already stage 4 bowel cancer, and that was the news that we were hit with after a few tests. But yeah, it's very, very shocking. You know, you're sitting in that room, and the whole world falls from beneath your feet, and you're trying to be
Right.
really strong for each other. And I think we're both those kind of people, um, kind of holding it together for each other. Um, but there's heavy chapters in the book that go through that actual day, the diagnosis and our feelings. You feel really numb and you don't really want to say anything because you don't want to accept it at first. And you, of course, with any cancer, you're still going to fight and have hope. So it was that really uncertain. Even the whole journey, you've still got a bit of hope there. So yeah, you're hanging on to hope. But I think we got through it with humor, the two of us. Obviously, at the very beginning, it's really hard, but throughout the journey, and it was only a short journey, to be honest, 7 months of treatment.
Wow.
But Steve was incredibly humble. You rarely hear him complain. And it wasn't that he was bottling it up. I just think we had a silent understanding because of the closeness of our relationship. And we just knew when to bring in a bit of light-hearted humor and lift each other up. And sometimes Steve would do
Right.
that to me completely unexpectedly, and those things saved me, you know, amazingly when I would be ready to break down and say something heartfelt, and he'd just do something silly in that moment. And I'd just be like, oh my God, you know, we're still there, we're still us, and we can get
Yeah.
through anything together. And I think as corny as it sounds, love is what gets you through. You are doing the best you possibly can for that person, and you know that you're supporting each other in the best way possible. And in hindsight, you're like, I was there the best I could be for each other. And yeah, I never saw him
Yeah.
lose his temper. You know, we just had to be, yeah, patient. It's hard. Mhm.
And on top of that, you have your relationship with Stephen. Stephen has Billy. He's a dad, like a new dad. Like he's got everything's new,
Yeah,
right?
everything's
In
really
these
new.
moments,
Yeah.
right? And it has to be frustrating for both of you, from both of your points of view, that this came to your family. This was not something anybody would wish on anyone to walk through these doors. But just in the moments of frustration, Did Stephen share with you kind of what his hopes were for Billy in the future and all that? Did you have time to kind of go through that and process that together and what life would look like for Billy down the road?
Yeah, it's one thing difficult was I think, you know, the very first thing that Steve ever said after diagnosis was, I won't get to watch young Bill dogs grow up. And that's what we called Billy at the time, Bill dogs. Just a little nickname we
Nice.
had. And that, you know, that one sentence was what really, really just broke me, because
Yeah.
Steve so badly wanted to be a dad. He'd be the best dad, and he only got to do
Yeah.
that for such a short time. I know without him having to tell me, what he would have wanted for Billy. We were adventurous. We went camping together. We went kayaking. We went fishing, 4-wheel driving.
Yeah.
We would have done all of that with Billy. I know that Steve did a bit of martial arts. He used to do surfing. He played football. We were right into our AFL, which is Australian Aussie
Yeah.
rules over here.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
we followed that, wanted Billy to play, and also being musical. We want Billy to be musical.
Yeah.
And we always joked that we had a bass player in my brother. Steve played bass and guitar. I sang, we need a drummer. So Billy's
Yeah.
going to be a drummer.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, my mum's new partner, he's a drummer. He's got a drum kit. So when he goes to grandma's house, he's been having a bash and he's actually quite good. He's been playing a bit of Queen, We Will Rock You.
Oh,
And
well,
he was
come
actually getting
on.
it in time and really good. So I know that, Steve and I did briefly touch on those things, and that's what he would have wanted. Just a life rich, full of adventure and activity and giving everything a go. Yeah, and hopefully give him that musical passion that we had as well. But it was hard for Steve to talk about that stuff. The one thing that I
Right.
think was hard for him was when it comes to Billy. So I didn't also want to pry too much. So, I tried to get him to write stuff out, but Steve was so positive and adamant that he was going to beat the cancer at some point that he's like, no, 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 I don't want to address that yet. And I think it all escalated and happened quickly that maybe he didn't get to leave as much
Yeah.
as we thought. But like I said, there was so much unspoken that we knew without him having.
And this book is a way to keep Stephen's story alive for Billy. I'm sure that as he grows and as he understands later on, as he gets bigger, that what's happened, and I think this book is going to be one of those cherished things that's going to grow up with him over time too. What about the idea that you write all these things down, you create the book, it's done, but then a flood of new memories and new things come to you. You're like, oh, I didn't even think about putting that in the book. Did you experience that at all once it
Yeah,
was
that's
complete?
very
Right?
interesting because when I jumped on to a recent Zoom meeting in Roxy's writer's mentorship
Yeah.
program, the ladies were asking that too. They were, what if I want to change it? And I sort of say, well, at the time, what you put down on paper, if you're really writing from a place of authenticity and truth and honesty, it doesn't even matter if your thoughts change later because that was what was important to you and relevant to you at the time. Those thoughts and emotions were how you felt at the time while it was happening. And those are the things that you remembered first. And obviously, our brains have a way of preserving that sort of thing for a reason. So I don't have any regrets trying to change because as you're writing, it can be a very long process. It took me over a year, which is pretty quick, I think, compared to some people as well. They take years to write their book.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you could keep doing that all the time. Oh, I want to change this. I want to change this. And I think you just have to trust the process. And if there's that much left out, you can always write another one, right?
There you go. Yeah, you could.
Yeah, and then
You
maybe,
could.
the next one can be more lighthearted about more of those funny tales and, you know, other memories. But I always say to people, look, you can't keep chop and changing forever, although the editing process is very hard. That's the hardest process. The hardest process isn't writing it all out because I had so much content. The hardest part is culling it and bringing it down and
Yeah.
picking the parts. My book's still quite long and is a big read. So there's still plenty more I had on top of that. So, so the editing process
Wow.
is much harder, but just put everything down. Just don't stop, don't hold back. Don't worry if your thoughts are all scattered because there's some really good editors out there, copy editors in the publishing process that will really help you with that bit as well.
So as we're talking, there's people that are listening to this, and this is a very similar path that they're on or have walked or about to walk, and they're hearing your words going, my gosh, does she sound strong, and like she's really worked on this, and that you've lived through some really tough days, and they're maybe just starting these tough days personally. Maybe they have a diagnosis that they've just had for their family member, and they don't know how to get to the other side where you are today. And I know it's an ever going, always happening thing. It doesn't just go away. But for that person that's listening, Leah, that's like your book's going to be a great source of comfort and a great resource to have for them. But if you could speak to them, maybe like in that hospital room or in that doctor just after that doctor's appointment, what kind of words of comfort, help, healing could you offer to somebody who's maybe on a similar path than you've been on?
Yeah. Look, to those people out there going through it now, it makes me cry because I remember how vulnerable you feel and how hard it is in that moment and how there looks like there's no end in sight and you just don't even know how to pick yourself up off the floor some days. And yes, I look strong and yes, I put it down on paper, but I had those days, I had those nights, many, many of them, many moments, before, during, and after, and still sometimes. But it's easier. It gets easier. It really does. And you have to believe that life is still beautiful out there. There's still beautiful moments you will grab and add to your catalogue of memories. This is just a really, really hard time. It's absolutely heartbreaking, but time does heal. It sounds cliche, but it sounds cliche because it's true. It really does. You just you look back fondly and strongly, and at the beginning you can't quite think like that yet because it's still just a raw, you know, really heartbreaking thing. But just hang in there. It sounds silly, but look at the ones you love. I'm very lucky to have had Billy. He, having a young child as a widow, you have to pick yourself up off the ground and you have to show up and be there for that child every day. And that really showed me the strength of the human spirit, because even in the most darkest depths of despair, you will find a way to be able to function and just get on with it, if not for yourself, for someone else. And if you want to write a book about it, that's a good drive right there, is to be able to help the next person, because as you're going through it, pay attention to the lessons you learn and those days that you realized, oh, I did achieve that, and give yourself credit for the little things, and I used to always give myself a bit of a pep talk in the mirror. It's like, okay, there's only so much overwhelm you can take. You need to give your
Right.
body a rest and your mind a rest, and be kind to yourself, because you're still here. You're still showing up and you loved that person. So give yourself
Yeah.
credit for that.
When you see Billy running around the house, going to watch whales later today, and you just see him living life, are there little elements of Stephen that you see in this little boy and you're like, oh my gosh, he's here.
Yeah.
He's with me through my son. I see little pieces of Stephen. Are you seeing that?
It's crazy. Like, I'm really lucky because I'm, dark hair, brown eyes, and Steve was blonde hair, blue eyes. So Billy has the very, clearly evident signs of Steve, physically. But then there's those other little things that are magic, that little glance or that little facial expression that catches you off guard. And it only happens just enough for it to be really special. And you're like, oh my God, that just looks like Steve then. That's amazing. Gives
Hmm.
you goosebumps. So yeah.
Wow.
And he's funny. He's just
Yeah.
full of energy and he's hilarious. He makes me laugh. He's a classic. And Steve was very much like that too. So I just think that yeah, he's he's gonna be, yeah, like his dad.
What do you think Billy's going to think of this book when he's in his like 20s and he grabs a copy of this off the shelf and starts reading through it again as more of a young adult? What are your hopes for him when he picks up this book later on in life?
Yeah, I think that um I'm really glad that I wrote it down at the time too, because I think I've changed as a person a lot since
Right.
then as well. But being such a young mum, scared, never having done it before, it's a lot about just new parenting and being thrown in the deep end as much as it is being widowed and trying to do it on your own. So I've put it all in there, raw and honest, even the times that he drove me nuts and I felt like I couldn't cope and I wanted to give up, and it's all in there. But then it's all
Mm-hmm.
so honest and true and about how he also got me through. So I really think that he will be proud of me, I hope, and I really think that it will really strongly increase our bond into Billy's adulthood as well. Right now,
Yeah.
he understands he doesn't have a daddy, or he does, but he's just up in heaven, but he doesn't fully grasp
Yeah.
it. He's very young. So, yeah, I probably wouldn't have remembered all those little things had I not journaled and wrote them down. So I'm so glad that I've got a raw rendition of how it was going through it so he can really understand.
It's beautiful. And again, it's a very personal story. And that's the other side we talked about already a little bit is that, it's kind of like a book for you and for Billy, honoring Stephen. And that's it. Like, but the fact that people are reading it and responding, I was reading some of the comments on your website from people that have read the book, and they're powerful comments. Like you really have reached out beyond your family with this story and helped a lot of other people to kind of they found something in the story that's helped them. What does it mean for you to hear that kind of feedback, being such a personal story, when other people start reaching out going, oh my gosh, this really, really helped me? What does that mean for you as the author?
Yeah, it's really humbling because there's a lot of elements to this book, not just letters, but I've put
Yeah.
my journal entries into the book as journal entries, untouched. They're very raw. I didn't change a thing. There's a lot of journal entries, there's letters, and there's also Facebook posts, because we made the cancer journey quite public with our friends and family in our local community. We got so much great support back then. So I remember posting and updating people of Steve's progress and the cancer journey. So there's a lot of really specific cancer sort of things in there too that people going through the journey might be able to relate to, like all the different complications and things like that. So all of those Facebook posts, almost of them are in there. And there's also poems that I wrote. There's songs in there that I wrote. So there's lots of different sort of elements as well as interwoven with the story. So there's stories of things that actually happened. And then there's also just lots of ramblings of my thought processes and how I beat myself up and then how I got to giving myself a bit of a break and not being so hard on myself. And it's sort of like a lot of thinking out loud. And I guess a lot of people can relate to that because we all have those thoughts and we all beat ourselves up a bit too much sometimes. And then just a reminder that we do all do that, but we do also need to be a bit kinder to ourselves. There's a little bit about spiritual stuff, I guess you could say, or even just
Mm-hmm.
um, after death, your loved ones sort of showing signs and just those
Hmm.
things that make you feel like there's something much bigger than us out there. And a lot of people love reading that stuff. A lot of people have said, oh my God, this is what happened to me when my partner died and things like that. So I love the conversations that come about because of what I've been bold enough to write. Um, and I haven't even I've been very honest with times I've messed up and took routes that of not so much healing, but probably making the situation worse during my grieving, and also learning from that. But everybody has to learn, I guess, on their own journey. So it's not about what's wrong and what's right and how to. It's just this is how I did, and there's so many different
Yeah.
stages of grief, and I think they're all in there. So no matter at what point you're in, yeah, it could be really triggering for some people to read my book, but it might be really great for them to read later when they're ready. And some people have bought my book and I said, look, if it's too much for you right now, don't feel obliged to read it so soon, but just chip
Yeah.
away at it, whatever stage
Yeah.
you're at. Yeah.
Maybe a future book, Letters from Billy,
Yeah, that's a great
maybe
idea.
down
I
the
like
road,
that, Dave.
right? Right?
Yeah.
As he grows up and as he hears stories about his dad and his journey growing up with you and his letters maybe back to Stephen from his perspective. And if he could send a letter off to dad, what would he write? And I don't know, there's something there, an idea maybe, right?
That's such a beautiful thought. Yeah, for him to be able to process that as well, because I wouldn't know from his perspective because I've always had a dad
Right.
growing up. So even my
Yeah.
own son is so different to me because of what he's been through. So for him to reflect and be able to express that either literary or maybe in music, who knows? That'll be amazing.
Right. Yeah. When I think of your book too, yeah, I would love to see something, another idea for you, but a children's book, maybe around grief, that you could read to your child at night for bedtime or something. You know the words that comfort Billy
Mhm.
on those days where he doesn't know what's going on, and maybe he's feeling a little uneasy, and he needs comfort. He needs something. So like some kind of like a children's book version of what you've written, kind of written more for that audience of kids. I think there's so many kids out there dealing with loss. I don't want to minimize anything, but there's kids that are just dealing with loss of a pet. They're dealing with grief. They're dealing with all these different emotions, and they don't know how to deal with these things.
Yeah.
So from a mother's point of view, like a book for children that talks about grief and talks about missing somebody you love, and that you to kind of take the spirit of what you've done and maybe do that for children as well as something to a companion maybe to this book, more written to Billy himself, like right to him, so that he can read it at night with you at bed, something like that. When
Yeah.
I think of this, I think there's so many things you can do from here. I think this is just a starting point for you to keep writing, keep sharing your stories. You have a gift, and I just wonder. I wonder what Stephen would want to see for you next. I'm always curious, like what his wishes would be for you, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to encourage you to keep writing, keep sharing, keep being creative. There's something special about how you show up in this world, and I know your relationship with Billy is super important, and I just hope that you just keep doing something, because it took a lot to put this book into the world, and I just think there's something else there. I don't know what it is, but there's something else there, and I'm really, really curious to see what's next for you.
Oh, thank you, Dave. That's really beautiful, and I really appreciate your bit of intuition there. And yeah, you're right. I'm always thinking of things. I, like music. I feel like I haven't really done too much of it, and I think Steve would really want me to keep doing singing and music. So there's definitely something there, and maybe Billy and I can jam together. We still got family that loves to jam, and it's always seems to be part
There
of
you go.
every gathering. So Billy to grow up with that and get involved. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Even with the child grief thing, there's all different ways. Billy was so young, he was far too young to understand at the time. He was
Yeah.
only 18 months old when Steve passed away. But now you're sitting there watching a family movie or something. And I swear a lot of those Disney movies seem to start with the child's lost a parent or both parents and they've got to try and
Yeah.
find their way in the world. And I see Billy sitting there and I look at him sometimes because they're like, I lost my dad or I don't have my dad and they're saying it on TV. And I wonder how, as a little 6-year-old boy, he feels about that relating to the characters in these children's movies. So
Right.
yeah, I do talk to her about that. I think, well, you're very special, but that makes you and mummy really close. And I said, there's families of all different shapes and sizes, just with one
Right.
mum, one dad, or some kids
Yeah.
lose both parents, some kids live with their grandparents, and it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's just really appreciating the little family unit that we've got. We've got our 2 Burmese kittens as well, and they're like Billy's inseparable. And I've called them Whitney and Mariah because I love the singers.
Of course. Yes.
And Whitney and Billy are inseparable. Like to him, like you said, pets are family, and they do develop these
Yeah.
really close bonds. So it's lovely to see that. And who knows, in the new house, we might even get him a puppy dog.
Oh, whoa,
It's on
whoa, that's
it's on the
recorded.
cards, but yeah, let's just
Yes.
let's just move first. But yeah.
Okay, well, just yeah, okay. Well, again, you're gonna go see Wales
Yes.
today, later on today, and that's a family pod, right?
Yeah.
They travel together.
Yeah.
They're always together, and
True.
maybe one of the whales gets lost or something,
Yeah,
right? And
that's
there could be a
another.
story there, and you could talk about loss and
Yeah.
finding your family, and it's a big ocean out there, right?
Oh, that's so
So,
beautiful. I
right,
love that analogy.
yeah,
Oh, you need
there
to
you
you
go.
need to write lots of books,
See,
Dave.
no, no, I'm giving it to you because I think you'll do much better than I could.
Yeah.
So no, it's beautiful. Again, there's something special about your story, Leah, and I'm excited to see where Billy ends up in life, and I just kind of wonder. I have no idea what happens after we're gone. I don't really know. I don't really have the answers to all that, but there's got to be some way, wherever we end up, that we have some way to check in on our family and loved ones. I can't imagine there's not a way to do that. That's my hope, I guess. So if that is a true hope, that is possible, I'm sure that Stephen is thrilled.
Yeah.
Is thrilled with what's happening and his story continuing, his son growing up in a loving home, and Wales. All these great things are good things, right? And I'm sure every time that a guitar is strummed or a drum is hit, there's that's life, right? Music is
That's
life.
right.
So I'm
Yeah.
sure that just kind of keep that music alive in your home. I love
That's
it.
right. It's
It's
in your
great.
heart and your soul, those things. And yeah, that's what it's very important. And yeah, no one knows what happens afterwards, but we all question it. And hey,
Yeah,
it's nice to have any kind of faith or any kind of hope as well. And we always want to do good for them as well, whether they're here or not. A lot of times I still talk
right,
to Steve going, see, we're doing great. Like, aren't you proud of us?
right.
So
We're doing it. I love it. Okay, before you go whale watching, let's talk about the website. Where can we send people to get more about the book? Maybe there's new books in the future as we've been chatting, but where to go to stay in touch with you as well, Leah? Where would you like to send the listeners?
yeah, at the moment I've got my website, which is www.letterstobilly.com.au. And Billy is with a Y, Billy. So yeah, www.letterstobilly.com.au. And you can subscribe to a newsletter. You can get in touch with me if you want to drop me an email. You can purchase the book and I'll post them out. I can post them internationally. So yeah, drop us a line.
And maybe, and the reason why I'm pushing so gently that you continue writing is because I selfishly want to have you back in the future to have more conversations. That's the reason why.
Yeah,
Is I want to celebrate the next thing.
the next.
And it's living the next chapter, right? It's the name of the show. So I'm in trying to encourage you that I just want to have more time with you. So if and when you do that, I would love to have you come back, Leah, and talk about the next thing you're working on.
Yeah,
Always keep a door open for you, okay?
that's a very good incentive to come back and chat to you, Dave. So that's making me pull my finger out and get something, get some of those ideas happening.
There you go.
Yeah, no,
I
I
love
love
it.
writing. I love creating. So I'm sure there'll be something. I'm always up to something. I keep myself busy.
That's good. Enjoy the whales later today with Billy. I hope he sees many, many whales, and it's like one of the big pivotal moments for him growing up. That's a beautiful thing being a parent, is you get to arrange these beautiful events and you just hope and pray that the whales show up. But you're like, oh, but this is going to be a memory he's going to keep with him, and these memories shape his future. So you never know, right? So I'm hoping for a great, beautiful day together for the two of you. It'd be great.
Thank you so much. Yeah, me too. It's been such a pleasure being on your show. Thanks so much, Dave, for having me.
Yeah, you're a wonderful guest to talk to. And again, thank you for writing this book. Thank you for sharing this story with all of us. Again, very deeply personal, but it's going to help a lot of people, and it already has. So thank you so much, Leah, for being here and being part of the show.
Thank you.
Excellent. Everyone, all the information, as always, in the show notes. I'm going to ask you to do this because we always do this. When you buy Leah's book, Letters to Billy, please leave a beautiful review as well. Write down the thoughts that come to you as you read the book and put it into a review. I know Leah would love to hear this. And it continues the story, keeps the story alive. More people will find it because of your thoughtful review. So wherever you buy your book, please leave that review. I think people need to hear your thoughts. Leah, thank you so much for doing this. Be safe out there checking out the whales. And again, I'll just keep the door open. Come back anytime. Love to have you back.
Thank you. Bye, Dave.
Excellent. Hey, thank you so much again for pressing play. As you've heard, great guests on the show. And one thing you didn't hear in this conversation is what? What did you not hear? Think about it for a second. That's right. Not a single solitary commercial for a mattress or a supplement or a whatever you call it. No. Why? Because we don't want to break up the conversation with commercials. So the fact that you're still here means that you are a fan of the show, I'm assuming. So if you want to help to keep the podcast going and to make me feel really happy, all I really care about is coffee, okay? I just got to be honest. I love coffee. I'm drinking one right now. It's starting to get cold. I need to warm it up. Helping us with our Buy Me a Coffee link over at livingthenextchapter.com and also in the show notes helps kind of keep the lights on around here. Remember, I'm doing this for free. I'm paying for everything. So I would love to have a little coffee donation, even $5 kind of fills up my cup. And I would love to enjoy a coffee from you. So if you're interested, again, thank you for listening. But you can use our Buy Me a Coffee link and fill up the cup. Thanks for being here.